Your great-grandfather built a cabin that lasted. He built it without a permit, without a contractor, without a single payment to a utility company, and the family that lived inside it stayed warm in January, cool in August, fed through March, and lit at midnight without asking anyone for permission to do any of it. Modern homes average $9,000 a year in carrying costs. The Frontier cabin had 25 features built into its bones that made that number impossible. Every single one of them still works. Every single one of them is gone. My name is Levi Blackwood. I am 53 years old, 7th generation on Blackwood Ridge in the southern Appalachians. My people came up out of the Carolinas in the 1790s and have not left since. My grandfather Eli raised me after my father died in the timber, and before Eli went, he made me copy everything he knew into a leather journal. Not some of it, all of it. The cures, the builds, the fire tricks, the food methods, the water systems. The 25 things a Frontier cabin had that a modern home does not, and the reasons each one disappeared that have nothing to do with progress and everything to do with profit. He made me swear it would not die with him. This is me keeping that promise. None of what I'm about to walk you through stopped working. Not one item on this list. They faded because somebody figured out how to sell you the replacement, and the replacement needed a monthly bill attached to it, and the monthly bill needed you to forget the original. That is not a conspiracy, neighbor. That is just how markets eat old skills. But the skills are still here. Eli's journal is still here, and so are you. 25 things counted down. Some of them you can put back this weekend. Some of them will take a summer. Number 3 will get your HOA writing letters. And number 1 is not a thing at all. It is the idea underneath every other thing on this list. Let us go. Number 25. The grease tin by the stove. Every Frontier cabin kept one tin. A squat metal can lived on the back of the stove, and after every meal that involved fat, every strip of bacon, every pork chop, every bit of lard rendered off the trim, the drippings went into the tin. Not down the drain, not into the trash. Into the tin. That grease fried the onions on Monday. It greased the cornbread pan on Wednesday. It waterproofed the leather boots on Friday. It served as a base for soap when the tin got full. It kept a wick burning when the candles ran low. One tin, zero waste, zero cost. The Cleveland Clinic published a piece in 2019 noting that rendered bacon fat is chemically stable at high heat, where modern seed oils oxidize and break down. Grandma was not being primitive. She was being correct. The seed oil industry spent 60 years calling her dirty. The science spent 60 years proving her right. Get a tin, start tonight. Number 24. The ash barrel right beside the grease tin lived its partner. A wooden barrel sat near the hearth, and every time the fire got cleaned, the cold hardwood ash went into it. Not outside, not scattered. Into the barrel. That ash was chemistry. Pour rainwater through it slowly, and the water that drips out the bottom is lye. Mix that lye with the fat from the grease tin, and cook it slow, and you have soap. 20 pounds of it in an afternoon, from 2 things the cabin was producing anyway is waste. The Consumer Product Safety Commission tightened rules on homemade lye soap sold at markets back in 1988. They never banned it for personal use. But the rules scared people, and Procter & Gamble were right there to fill the shelf. Now that same bar of tallow soap sells for $7 at a farmer's market with the word artisan stamped on it. Same molecule, different label, different margin. Your ash barrel is still legal. Your sink drain is still a waste. Number 23, the root cellar. Here is something the refrigerator salesman never told you. A hole in the north side of a hill, shored with timbers and planked on the floor, holds 32 to 40 degrees on its own through 5 months of winter. The USDA Farmers Bulletin 879 from 1917 printed that number in plain English for every farm household in the country. Then in 1936, Congress passed the Rural Electrification Act. General Electric showed up with a refrigerator, and the extension bulletins quietly stopped teaching root cellaring. University of Minnesota Extension published a paper in 2013 confirming it still works if you build it right and uses exactly zero electricity. Nobody banned the hole in the hill. They just sold you a plug-in replacement for $1,400 and bet you would never wonder why. 2,000 pounds of potatoes, carrots, cabbages, and apples. One winter. No bill. The math has not changed. Number 22. The spring house. Your great-grandfather built a small stone shed over it. Water ran through a stone trough inside, and crocks of milk, butter, and cream sat right in the current. It held 42 degrees through July without a single moving part, without a single wire, without a single monthly statement from anyone. A 2013 University of Vermont study on off-grid cold storage confirmed that spring water in a shaded stone structure holds refrigeration temperatures year-round. That study came out the same year a new refrigerator cost $1,200. General Electric ran ads in the 1940s calling the icebox the housewife's shame. Turns out the shame was in the marketing budget, not the spring house. Water, stone, gravity. Three things that have never sent a bill. Number 21. The smokehouse. A small log structure, 10 feet square, is all it took. A slow hickory fire smoldered in a shallow pit at the bottom, the smoke rising through slabs of salted pork hanging from iron hooks above. 3 days of that, and a side of pork kept 9 months without a single ampere of electricity. The USDA Farmers Bulletin 918 from 1917 gave every American farmer the exact method in plain language. Then the Federal Meat Inspection Act, which the big Chicago Packers lobbied hard for, watched as zoning codes slowly regulated backyard smoke curing into extinction. By 1978, 41 states had municipal codes making it difficult or impossible to build a new smokehouse inside city limits. Armour and Swift needed the shelf space. Modern grocery store bacon runs $9 a pound and is injected with liquid smoke from a factory. Cure your own, and a whole side of pork costs $3 a pound and tastes like something your grandfather would recognize. Number 20. The rain barrel. 1,000 square feet of roof delivers free water. The USDA Farmers Bulletin 1418 from 1930 ran that number, and it has not changed. Colorado made rainwater collection technically illegal under its prior appropriation water law until Senate Bill 0980 partially walked that back in 2009. Utah followed in 2010. The reason was not public health. Irrigation districts and municipal water utilities held the rights to that water before it hit your roof, and they were not giving them up without a legislative fight. The Environmental Protection Agency's 2013 Green Infrastructure Guidance calls rainwater harvesting a simple and effective practice. Your roof catches it. Their meter charges for it. That arrangement is not an accident. Number 19. The kitchen garden. In 1944, 20 million front yards grew food. Beans where the boxwoods are now. Tomatoes where the decorative grasses grow. The USDA War Food Administration reported those gardens produced 40% of the fresh vegetables consumed in the country that year. Then the war ended, Scott's Miracle-Gro expanded, and HOA covenants across the Sun Belt began fining residents for non-turf front yards. Not federal law. Neighborhood law. Written by the people selling you the fertilizer. The American Public Health Association formally supported home food gardens as a public health measure in 2012. The lawn has been feeding nothing but a mower since 1945. A kitchen garden feeds a family. The frontier cabin knew which one mattered. And I will be honest with you, the first time my HOA sent me a letter about my tomato plants, I considered options that Eli's journal does not cover. We worked it out. Number 18. The seed tin. Your great-grandfather let his best tomato go soft. He scooped the seeds out, dried them on a piece of newsprint, and stored them in a labeled envelope in a mason jar in the pantry. Same seed, same tomato. Every year for 40 years. A burpee seed packet in 1936 cost a nickel. A saved seed cost nothing at all. Congress passed the Plant Patent Act in 1930, the Plant Variety Protection Act in 1970, and then Bowman versus Monsanto in 2013 confirmed that patent holders can restrict what farmers do with next year's seed. Pioneer Hybrid and Monsanto sold varieties that do not breed true. Buy new every spring. The UN Food and Agriculture Organization called farmers' saved seed fundamental to agricultural biodiversity in 2006. The seed is older than the patent. It always has been. Number 17. The backlog fire. An old mountain man lays his fire in one order. Backlog, forestick, kindling, always in that sequence, never reversed. The backlog is the biggest, densest piece of hardwood in the stack. Not there to blaze. There to smolder, feed the coal bed, and charge the stone wall behind it with heat that radiates for 6 to 8 hours after the flame is gone. Lydia Maria Child wrote this exact sequence in her household books in 1829 because it was not a mountain secret. It was every house in America. Then the coal stove arrived. Then the thermostat arrived. And the daily habit of laying a fire correctly got replaced by a dial on the wall. The knowledge did not die because it failed. It died because there was no dollar in teaching it, and considerable dollars in selling you the dial. Number 16. The chimney as engine. In 1970, federal studies called the fireplace useless. That verdict hit the code books hard. County after county rewrote residential codes to require liners, outside air supplies, and doors on new fireplaces. New builds went to lightweight frame. The 12-inch stone wall got replaced with 2x4s and pink insulation. Here is what the studies missed. They tested open dampers, full draft, worst case burns. They never tested the way an old-timer actually ran the flue. Damper throttled back. Backlog set. Coal bed raked wide at bedtime. Stones charged to 85 degrees radiating warmth until dawn. The Department of Energy's own building science guidance still uses the words stack effect and thermal mass. The physics they cited to bury the old hearth is the same physics that proves it works. The codebook did not measure your grandmother. It measured a bad copy of her. Number 15. The stone exterior wall. Put your palm flat against an old cabin wall. It is warm. Not hot. Warm. That is the machine working. Stone runs 12 to 18 inches thick from the hearth to shoulder height. And that thickness is the whole difference between a fireplace that scorches your face and cools before dawn, and a chimney that keeps radiating warmth into your sheets at 3 in the morning. The Department of Energy confirms right now that thermal mass is a real, measurable, load-bearing piece of how a building holds temperature. A 12-inch stone wall fully charged releases heat for 6 to 10 hours after the source is gone. 2x4 framing with pink insulation releases heat in about 45 minutes. The stone wall never needed a utility company to finish its job. The framed wall needs one every single night. Number 14. The deep-set window. Every frontier cabin window sat recessed from the wall, not for looks. That recess is a shade device. In summer, the sun angle is high, and the thick wall keeps direct light from hitting the glass until late afternoon. The interior stays 15 degrees cooler than outside without a single ton of air conditioning. In winter, the sun angle is low, and the same recess lets the pale winter light drive deep into the room, landing on the stone floor and warming it. Modern homes put the window flush with the wall because it is cheaper and faster to frame. The result is a house that bakes in July and bleeds heat in January. Passive solar design firms charge $20,000 today to put back the recess your great-grandfather built in as a matter of course. Number 13. The covered porch. Running the full length of the cabin's south or east face. The porch is not a sitting area, it is a climate system. That roof extension keeps summer sun off the cabin wall during the hottest hours while letting the lower winter sun reach the stone. It creates a dead air buffer between the exterior wall and the open weather. It gives you a dry space to split wood, hang wet gear, and work in the rain without heating the inside. It is the first room of the house before you are in the house. Building science researchers at Oak Ridge National Laboratory published findings in 2012 showing that properly designed porch overhangs reduce summer cooling loads by up to 18%. The HOA in most modern subdivisions requires the porch to match the roofline exactly, which is decorative, not functional. The frontier porch was never decorative. Number 12. The sleeping loft. Heat rises. Every mountain man's child knew that by age 5. The sleeping loft in a frontier cabin sat directly above the fireplace wall, accessed by a steep ladder, low-ceilinged and snug. On a January night when the ground floor was 50 degrees and the backlog was burning low, that loft was 68. No furnace, no electric blanket, pure physics. Modern homes invert this logic by putting the master bedroom on the ground floor and the HVAC system in the attic where it fights the heat gradient instead of using it. The frontier builder ran with the physics. The modern builder ran with the floor plan that photographed well for the listing. Those are different priorities, and they produce different heating bills. Number 11. The keeping room. Before living rooms, before parlors, before open concept floor plans, there was the keeping room. One room, central. Everything happened there. Cooking, eating, sleeping in winter, mending, preserving, doctoring, educating the children and arguing about the neighbors. That single room retained heat from the fireplace efficiently because it had no hallways to bleed it into, no vaulted ceiling to lose it above, and no separate dining room sitting cold and unused 6 nights out of 7. The average American home today is 2,500 square feet, and most of it is unoccupied most of the time. Every unoccupied square foot is a square foot you are heating or cooling on behalf of nobody. The keeping room was not small because they were poor. It was small because they were smart. Number 10. The hand-dug well. Your great-grandfather dug 20 feet down with a shovel and an auger, lined the shaft with fieldstone, and set a cast iron pitcher pump on top. 5 gallons a minute with a moderate arm. 50 to 100 gallons a day for the whole family. The USDA Farmers Bulletin, 941 from 1917, documents those numbers exactly. The Safe Drinking Water Act of 1974 gave the EPA authority over public systems, but not private wells. Municipal codes, however, began requiring hookup to city water wherever a line ran past the property, and the utilities acquired a captive customer. The Centers for Disease Control confirmed in 2015 that private wells can provide safe drinking water when properly constructed and maintained. The United States Geological Survey reports 43 million Americans still get their water from one. The well never stopped working. The meter just got mandatory. Number 9. The pitcher pump. Mounted directly over the well or the cistern, the pitcher pump is the hand-powered interface between underground water and a kitchen bucket. Cast iron. One moving part. Serviceable with a leather washer and a wrench. No electricity required. No pressure tank. No expansion vessel. No annual inspection sticker from the county. A good pitcher pump bought in 1890 could still be working in 1970 if anyone had bothered to keep it primed. Most had not, because by then the electric pressure pump had arrived and the pitcher pump looked like something a poor man used. Same water. Different story attached to the handle. One moving part versus 47. You decide which one fails first when the grid goes down. Number 8. The pantry and larder located on the north wall of the cabin, where exterior temperatures kept the interior naturally cool. The pantry was a working cold storage room. Stone or plaster walls. Thick shelving. A ventilation gap at the floor that pulled cool air in from outside in the shoulder seasons. Crocks of rendered lard. Mason jars of canned fruit. Barrels of salt pork. Dried beans in cloth sacks. Smoked hams hanging from the ceiling hooks. A well-stocked frontier pantry could feed a family of 5 for 6 months without a single trip to a store. The modern kitchen has 42 linear feet of cabinet space, holding mostly things that expire in 30 days and are replenished weekly from a store 45 minutes away. That is not a pantry. That is a staging area with good lighting. Number 7. The tool wall. One wall of the cabin's working area held every tool the family owned, hung on pegs or fitted into brackets, each one visible, each one accessible, each one maintained. A draw knife, a froe, a broadex, a crooked knife, a spoke shave, a set of chisels, a whetstone mounted at arm height. Every tool on that wall could repair the cabin, the furniture, the harness, the wagon, the snowshoes, or the canoe. The principle was one good tool for a broad range of uses, maintained to a standard where it performed like new. Stanley and Craftsman did not ban the tool wall. They filled the hardware store with 50 specialty tools that each did one thing, and none of them well in a cold barn. Then they built in planned obsolescence, so the specialty tool needed replacing every 3 years. The tool wall lasted a century. The big box store counts on it not. Number 6. The cure barrel. An oak barrel, or a stoneware crock, sat in the cool corner of the cellar, and it held the family's meat supply through winter. Salt pork packed in brine. Bacon sides under cure. Ham in a dry salt pack. The USDA issued the methodology in plain English in multiple farm bulletins across the early 20th century. The National Center for Home Food Preservation at the University of Georgia, publishing in 2008, still lists salting and brine curing as effective and legitimate preservation methods. That is not an antique institution. That is a modern federal partnered university in this century, confirming what Eli's mother did in a dirt-floored cellar. The frozen food industry did not outlaw the barrel. They hired the marketing budget that made your grandmother afraid of it. And she handed the keys to Frigidaire. And Frigidaire handed the keys to the power company. And the power company has been collecting rent on the barrel ever since. Number 5. The fat lamp. A shallow iron dish filled with hardened tallow. A twist of cotton rag laid in it as a wick. Lit from a fireplace ember, it glows yellow for 4 hours on the fat left over from Sunday supper. Cost the family nothing, because the fat was a byproduct of the meat they were already eating. Standard Oil started refining kerosene in the 1860s, and within 20 years had made the tallow lamp look like something a desperate man burned because he could not afford real light. Then Thomas Edison arrived in 1879 and made the kerosene lamp look primitive. Every step, somebody sold you the next thing. Nobody paid you to keep your grease. FEMA's own emergency preparedness guides still list improvised fat lamps as viable lighting when the grid fails. A can of Crisco and a shoelace will light your kitchen for a week. Your great-grandmother knew that. The power company spent 140 years hoping she would forget. Number 4. The Dutch oven hook. A single green stick cut from the brush behind the cabin, notched with a knife, wedged between a rock and the packed earth of the fire ring. From it hangs a cast iron Dutch oven over coals, and inside it is stew, or bread, or beans, or rendered fat, or boiling water for the sick child in the loft. That stick cost nothing. It took 30 seconds to cut. It required no fuel canister, no regulator valve, no piezo igniter, no instruction manual in 4 languages. The Dutch oven in an 1890 Sears catalog ran $3.50 and lasted 4 generations. The lightweight titanium camp pot at the gear store today runs $89 and will outlast you only if you never drop it on rock. Coleman started selling the first pressurized camp stove in 1923. They did not outlaw the stick. They just made sure you felt primitive for using one. The hook never stopped working. Number 3. The whetstone. Your grandfather kept a two-sided Arkansas oil stone on the workbench and a fine ceramic in the kitchen drawer. 15 minutes a month and every blade in the cabin held an edge that would shave hair off your forearm. The stone cost $3 in 1955 and lasted his whole life and would last yours if you still owned it. Shop class was cut from most public school curricula between 1971 and 1985 as a cost-saving measure. Nobody outlawed the whetstone. They just made sure the next generation grew up without ever seeing one in use. A disposable razor cartridge runs $4 a month forever because a sharp edge is something you maintain and maintenance is not a revenue model. The stone is a revenue model killer. That is the only reason you never learned to use one. Steel, stone, water, 2,000 years still works. Number 2. The charcloth tin. A small tin with a pinhole punched in the lid. Inside it, a strip cut from a worn-out linen shirt. Set the tin at the edge of the coals and let it smoke until the smoke stops seeping from the pinhole, then let it cool. Open the lid. Inside is a square of black, papery cloth that will catch a single spark from a struck flint and hold it as a glowing ember for a full minute, long enough to nurse into flame with dry moss or shredded bark. A man carries a tin of charcloth in his possibles bag, and it costs him nothing but a scrap of old shirt and 10 minutes at the fire's edge. John Walker sold the first friction match in 1827. Bic ships 1 billion disposable lighters a year. The lighter costs $1, works twice in the rain, and ends up in a landfill. The charcloth costs nothing, works in the rain, and the tin refills from the next worn-out flannel shirt. Colonial Williamsburg still teaches this to 5-year-olds at their history camps. 5-year-olds. The knowledge was never hard. It was just not for sale. Number 1. Sovereignty. This is not a feature. You cannot buy this at a hardware store. You cannot nail it to a wall or hang it from a peg. Every item on this list was a brick in the same wall. The grease tin, the ash barrel, the root cellar, the seed tin, the cure barrel, the coal bed, the stone wall, every single one. And that wall had a name. The old word for it was independence. The newer word, the one Eli used in his journal, was sovereignty. It meant you owned your own water, your own light, your own heat, your own food, and your own fire. And no man in a suit could walk up your drive with a bill in his hand and turn you into a tenant on your own land, because there was nothing you needed from him. Not a canister, not a subscription, not a permission slip. Nobody passed a law against knowing things, neighbor. They just made sure that every time you wanted warmth, there was a carrier unit to sell you. Every time you wanted light, there was a meter to run. Not a conspiracy. Just how a market works when the thing it sells replaces the thing you already knew how to do for free. The frontier cabin was not primitive. It was a complete, integrated, self-sufficient machine that modern building science is slowly and expensively rediscovering and calling innovation. That knowledge is not lost. Eli's journal is not lost. You just read 25 pieces of it. So here is your week. Do not try all 25. That is not how the library reopens. Pick one, just one. Save the drippings from your next batch of bacon and start a grease tin on the back of the stove. That is tonight. Walk the perimeter of your house and find the coolest north-facing corner where a pantry shelf could live. That is Saturday morning. Let one tomato go fully soft on the vine this fall and save the seeds into a labeled envelope in a mason jar. That is 10 minutes in September. Find your fireplace damper and work it open and closed with your hand until you know it by feel in the dark. That is this evening. One brick in the wall. Then next month, another one. The wall your great-grandfather built one brick at a time kept a family free for generations on a ridge nobody else wanted. It can do the same work again. The knowledge is yours now. Every subscriber to this channel is one more set of hands keeping that library open and its doors unlocked. I ran through Eli's journal last winter. There are more than 300 entries I have not touched yet. I mean to pull every last one back into daylight before I am done. The old ways kept us, neighbor. Do not let them close on your watch.